I shy away from thinking, from the idea that we're creating our suffering, or our illnesses. But because these things are happening on such a subtle level, in the there's a shamanic idea that, first there's an idea and then it moves into that etheric idea can move then into the mental idea, the spiritual idea, and then the mental idea, and then the emotional idea, and then it becomes embodied, right? So there are these ideas that kind of come down, and then we can allow them to release through the body, um, and I think these things happen on a very, very subtle level. But especially I've found in dealing with pain, at least in my own pain, and in guiding people to work with pain, um, to really be with pain, like to be able to allow the pain to be there and watch all of the ways that we're pushing it away.
Namaste, beautiful souls. I'm Shilpa, and you're tuned into the Omni Mindfulness podcast, a sanctuary for spiritual entrepreneurs. As a holistic mindfulness coach and social marketing strategist, I'm here to guide you on a transformative journey. On this show, we explore captivating stories and provide practical tools that deepen your connection with your authentic self. Through the personal and professional narratives of remarkable individuals, we expand our consciousness and ignite the spark of possibility. Each season, I curate content that empowers you to create a holistic lifestyle encompassing spirituality, mindfulness, energy awareness, and mindset. Join me as we engage in conversations with experts in their respective fields and share solo casts from yours truly, all aimed at supporting you and relaxing, revitalizing, resetting your body, mind, and spirit. I'm your host and the visionary behind Omni Mindfulness. So what if just one story had the power to shift the trajectory of your life? What if you could become an instrument in helping others realize their true selves? And what if your soul's higher purpose lies in experiencing the joy of Omni Mindfulness? Remember, it's never too late to rewrite your story. Welcome to Season 8 of the Omni Mindfulness podcast. During this exciting season, we delve deep into the power of mindset. In October, join us as we explore Happy Mind. Is happiness an inside-out job? We'll explore the concept of happiness from various perspectives, ranging from DNA and brain health to mindfulness practices. Moving into November, it's all about conscious connections. Loneliness can be an epidemic, especially during the holidays. Let's understand the art of forming meaningful connections. And in December, we wrap up 2023 with the theme Embodied Awareness. Discover how to connect your body, mind, and spirit for a holistic approach to life. Stay tuned for thought-provoking conversations, expert insights, and transformative stories. It's a season you won't want to miss. And up next is the very cool Clementine Moss. Clementine is the founder and drummer of the Led Zeppelin powerhouse Zepparella, with a busy solo career as a singer and songwriter. A graduate of UC Santa Cruz with a creative writing degree, her writing path gave way to a musical one until she began her blog Bliss in Drumming in 2016. In her essays, tales of her music career provide metaphor for contemplative practice, and many of those pieces are found in various forms in and were the impetus for her book, From Bonham to Buddha and Back, The Slow Enlightenment of the Hard Rock Drummer. Clementine is a spiritual counselor and a non-denominational minister at the Foundation for Sacred Stream. Using the modalities of depth hypnosis, applied shamanism, energy medicine, sound healing, and morphic awakening techniques, Clem has an active healing practice. She is certified in contemplative psychotherapy and conflict resolution. A Vipassana meditator for over 30 years, her study and personal practice spans many traditions. She lives in San Francisco with music manager and musician Tim Moss and Henry the Pug, Her writing has appeared in Modern Drummer magazine, Memoir magazine, and several other online publications. Clementine believes that the core of our being is one of compassion and caring. As we meet challenges that seem to grow larger and larger, she has developed a belief that our humanity and cooperation will continue to strengthen. And now, without further ado, here is Clementine. Well, Clementine, I am so honored to have you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I mentioned this to you when we first connected that I love music. We're a family that listens to all kinds of music. My husband's more of a Nine Inch Nails guy.
Uh-huh.
But I love everything, and I'd love for the audience to know about your journey and your connection to music.
Yeah, thank you. I've been a rock and roll drummer since I was 27. I kind of I veered off from a writing career into music. I took my first drum lesson and drums just kind of captured me. And right around that time, I went to my first 10-day silent meditation retreat. And so I have these two parts of myself that I thought were separate parts of myself, the creative part of myself, and then the spiritual contemplative side. And as I've gotten older and realized it's all kind of one thing. And I love that you asked me here when you're talking about the embodiment, because a lot of what I love to talk about and what I've really come to write about is how we can see our spiritual life as our life. For a long time, I thought I had the spiritual life and the rock and roll life. And then suddenly I realized it's kind of all one thing. Your spiritual life is the way that you show up in the world, is the way that you're fully present in the world. So I love this topic. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that you mentioned, the spiritual life becomes the life that you're living. I believe that spirituality is a lifestyle, and sometimes we do it consciously or it can be unconscious, but the moment you're conscious, it becomes so much more interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like for a long time at the beginning of a spiritual path, I think we're constantly trying to find, we find those places in meditation of stillness, of awareness, of openness. And then we get up and we run out into the world, and then we fall into all of our old patterns of behavior, and that we feel like we have to keep coming back to it, keep coming back to it. But then I feel, as we go along in our life, suddenly it becomes harder to get out of it, right? It's like the script flips, and suddenly we're now, it feels difficult to kind of behave in that non thinking, kind of reactionary way over time. And so, for people who are starting out on the path, it might be nice to hear that one day it's not as hard. One day you actually are kind of present in that awareness, and then your life then it is, you aren't as reactive. Of course, we're human, and we're not enlightened beings, very few of us, so we all have those moments where we fall into our old patterns of traffic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that over time it does become easier to just kind of be in that space that we find in meditation.
Now, because music played such a strong role, and then meditation, it always seems like the yin and yang. Like on one hand, you're outside of your energy, in I guess more engaged with the outside world, and then with meditation, you're inward. And over time, you've embodied that philosophy or internalized the approach to your music as well as probably your meditation, that it's almost one. Do you find your music becomes your meditation?
Yeah, I think the way I would say it is, when I sit in meditation, I'm really looking. I don't feel like I'm really looking for it. What I'm finding now is that I fall into that space beneath my reactivity, beneath the thoughts, beneath the conscious, critical stuff that I'm always kind of following along with and I'm in that kind of wider awareness of being, of pure being. And that place can almost feel like an emptying out in a way. And when I'm playing music and I sit behind the drum kit and I'm at a rock show, um, that also is the place that I'm looking for. I'm looking for that emptied out place so that the music can move through me. And if we see that in our daily life, it's as if spirit is moving through us, purpose is moving through us, enthusiasm is drawing us into integrity in the way that we behave in the world. And it's the same, I think music is a great metaphor. Being a musician is a great metaphor for that. I think about Bach and how he never seemed to take ownership of his music. He always spoke of it as something that was moving through him, that he was an instrument of the music. And I love that idea, both playing music and being in the world.
Yeah. I truly believe that what you just described, it may feel esoteric to many that are listening to us, but when you say moving through us, it's analogous to the energy metaphor that we keep hearing these days, that everything is energy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when you think of your music as energy, your meditation as energy, your thoughts are energy. And when it's moving through you, you almost align with that vibration.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when we're thinking about, being embodied, right, using this to understand embodiment, I think for a long time I was finding that space within me, that kind of emptied out, hollowed out space within me, that awareness space. And I was using it as a way to escape a lot of stuff, right? And I think this is what is meant by maybe spiritual bypassing, where we find those very floaty, wonderful connections to source. Um, but we still have a lot of stuff that is here to be seen and understood and released and healed, and all of our old patterns. And we can get kind of trapped in thinking, oh, I found it, and then avoiding looking at some of the heavier aspects of us that we're meant to understand here. I don't believe we're meant to float off into the clouds in this life. We're embodied here to understand embodiment, understand matter, understand emotion and our feelings. And so I think that being able to understand that, I had a moment where a terrible thing had happened in the world. I'm sorry. Um, I had a moment where a terrible thing had happened in the world, and I read about it in the news, and I realized I wasn't feeling that agony. I wasn't feeling the way that I have in the past. I was seeing it from a neutral place, and yet there was no emotion, even though it was a terrible thing that had happened. And it kind of rang a bell in me, like, I don't think that's the way to be in the world. I think it's important, and that we're here to feel. We have emotions to have emotions to feel, and when I realized that I was in a spiritual bypass, and it was time for me to come almost back into my body. Not that I would get wrapped up in the grief and identify it as me, but that I would allow it to be present, allow myself to feel it fully. Because ultimately, in all of our spiritual seeking, what we're looking for is the ability to be openly compassionate with others, with the other. And if I'm hiding from my own pain within me, I'm also hiding from others' pain. I can't fully be present in the way that I think we're called to be for the other in this life. So yeah, so that's kind of a heavy heavy bunch of stuff that I just
I
kind of
love
laid
the
out.
way you articulated that concept first by recognizing through awareness that you're like, whoa, am I feeling the way I should be feeling? Because obviously this is heavy information. And then recognizing it, that's a moment of, I think, spiritual awareness. You've had just having that ability saying, I'm coming from a place of neutrality, but I do as a human need to feel. And how do I
Yeah,
embody it? And sometimes that embodiment, this is really the deeper subject you and I are trying to tap into is uh, physically feeling those emotions, recognizing where they are in the body, then releasing it, as
yeah,
opposed to um, not absorbing it without compassion.
yeah, yeah. I've come to see the body as a great tool. Um, as somebody who struggled, with eating disorders in my life, with a very negative self attack constantly of my physical self, voice that had developed, as a teenager that, I was trying to understand for a long time. I see all the ways I've tried to escape my body. First it was through intellectualism, right? I was a great reader when I was a kid and just in my mind. And then when I found spirituality, it was like, great, I can get away from the body. The body, I mean, so many spiritual teachings even talk about, the impurity of the body or having to purify the body or cleanse the body. And going through all of those things through the course of my life. And then that moment where I realized, wow, I really have escaped the body. I can't even feel it, I can't even feel the body. And it's time for me to come back into my body. Ultimately, I think that's why something like yoga or, movement, exercise can be so helpful because it does connect us, to our physicality. But then there's that deeper level of connecting to my feelings. And those are really the thing. That's really what I was trying to escape when I was trying to escape my body, was feeling. Yeah.
And that's so true for I hear this, I see this among women a lot
Yeah.
because of whatever culture or society has done
Hmm.
to a certain generation of women, our body image then turns into negative thinking patterns. And then perhaps even any form of trauma that was unresolved through proper tools at a young age that then results in probably us staying disconnected, disembodied.
Disembodied. Yeah. I mean, in moments of trauma, we go outside our body, and that's when, I work as a shamanic practitioner as well. And, that is what a soul retrieval is, right? It's the idea that in moments of trauma, a part of us stays behind so that we can move forward in our life. So there is a part of us stuck in that traumatic moment that left our body that is still in that place. So yeah, I think that I can see the ways that I did that. And what ends up happening then is we end up having a lot of empty. There's something empty then, and we keep trying to fill it. And a lot of the times I think for women in this culture, we try to fill it with perfection, with ways of improving ourselves, of being better, of being our highest self, and all of these things. And we run around in circles a little bit. And to be able to see that maybe there everything right now within me is just okay. Like maybe I am okay, and it's okay to feel, even if what I'm feeling is something I don't want to feel. Knowing and understanding that what I'm feeling isn't going to stay. Everything moves, everything changes, embracing the fact that I am not my pain. My pain is here to be felt and to leave. Yeah.
Yes. And that is a conversation I've been having with a lot of guests about the the power of meditation on so many levels.
Yeah.
It allows us to be more embodied, because while we witness a certain thought and release the thought, by releasing it, we're not embodying it in a negative way, which turns
Mm,
into locked emotions, which into pain or
yeah.
disease, right? When we observe it and allow it to release, we are, I believe, it sounds counterintuitive, but we are becoming more embodied by doing that.
Yeah. 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 It's tricky because I shy away from thinking, from the idea that we're creating our suffering, or our illnesses. But because these things are happening on such a subtle level, in the there's a shamanic idea that, first there's an idea and then it moves into that etheric idea can move then into the mental idea, the spiritual idea, and then the mental idea, and then the emotional idea, and then it becomes embodied, right? So there are these ideas that kind of come down, and then we can allow them to release through the body, um, and I think these things happen on a very, very subtle level. But especially I've found in dealing with pain, at least in my own pain, and in guiding people to work with pain, um, to really be with pain, like to be able to allow the pain to be there and watch all of the ways that we're pushing it away. Sometimes can transform our experience of pain. Um,
You
so
know,
yeah.
I do feel, and again, this is why I feel this conversation between you and I is so important, even going deeper in a future podcast about embodiment, is that we also live in a culture where there's very little time given to grieve,
Hmm.
and the tools required to process um embodiment, if that makes any sense. Like when my mother passed away suddenly, and I was
Mm,
in sole income at the time, my husband hadn't been working, and I had to return to work, and I had a 10-month-old, and everything just felt like too much too
yeah.
quickly. And I remember somebody pulling me aside at work saying, "Are you better now?" And this was like
Oh,
just a few weeks later. I'm like, "No, I haven't
yeah.
processed anything."
Yeah. Yeah. I know. There's a lot of pressure on us. And we also have a lot of ideas about the way it's supposed to look, about the way our healing looks. Um, and we put the pressure sometimes on us, like we're supposed to be better now, right? We're not supposed to feel this. And yeah, it can be really difficult to carve out that space for yourself. I'm sorry about your mom. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still processing, and I think that back to the embodiment though, one of the things that's helped me is really consciously connecting to my heart space and
Mm,
meditate, feeling the energy there
mm,
and staying there for longer than just a moment, a fleeting moment.
yeah.
There's so much energy there.
And you realize that energy is the your mother, right? That energy is the connection to your mother. Energy, the love you shared with your mother, it's never gone. It's present there. You get to just sink into it, and you realize that really in that place there is no loss. What it is that you shared, it is there always. And, everything changes, our physicality changes constantly, but there is something that remains still and present always. And it's in that I think we can find solace. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, I also believe that the years of wisdom that you gain from whatever, from childhood onwards, those lessons are embodied in your consciousness.
Right.
And they're there when you're ready to tap into that information or energy to help you help others, help not only yourself.
Yeah. And that, it's a lot. It's a lot for a lot of people. I mean, it's a lot for me, it's a lot for all of us because we have our identity of, who we are, and sometimes in order to tap into that knowledge, that new way of being, that new way of perceiving, it can feel very threatening. I see so many people who are caught in um, the past. I'm thinking of a man I met once who, was living in his car, and his wife had died, and he just couldn't get over that. And it was as if he didn't have another way of being without her. And so he let everything sort of become like dissolve in his life because he was holding on to um, that inability to move past that pain. And I think on even smaller levels, all of us do that, and it can feel really frightening, to recognize those lessons. But it does bring us into joy. It
Yeah.
does,
How
I think, yeah.
yeah. How has meditation played a role in you understanding embodiment? And then maybe you can share that connection to the book you're coming up with.
Yeah. Well, when you said meditation and embodiment, I think about sitting, I've done many Vipassana 10-day silent retreats, which are magical. And I recommend for anybody who wants to put themselves through 10 days of torture. I mean, it's not easy, but it's very worth it. But I realize when I'm sitting, it's not natural for me to sit on the floor. I'm not kind of built for that. So I'm in a lot of physical pain when I'm sitting, or I can be. And I realize how when my mind is at unrest, my body is in pain. I see it so clearly when I'm sitting with nothing to do but sit and observe my reactions within myself. I see that when I'm in pain, my mind is at unease, and vice versa, and if I'm peaceful, I see it in my body. Or if there's pain, and I'm peaceful in my mind, the pain becomes something else. It's like just kind of a nagging thing, right? So the mind body connection in meditation, I think, is greatly helpful. Yeah. And then the book it's a memoir, and it's called From Bonham to Buddha and Back: The Slow Enlightenment of the Hard Rock Drummer. And I used Bonham, means John Bonham, who is the drummer in Led Zeppelin. For the last 20 years, I've played in a Led Zeppelin band. So I've have a strong connection to him and his music, and so I used that in his name in the title to represent my drumming life, my rock and roll life. And Buddha has to do with my Buddhist leanings. I wouldn't say I'm a Buddhist, but I've had 30 years of Vipassana meditation practice and other modalities. And the book is, like I said, it's a memoir, and it's little pieces that talk about what it's like to sit in meditation and then get up and drive to a rock show and do all of that, and then come back um, and go back into my kind of contemplative life. So it's drawing those parallels with the hope that anybody can kind of take that out to their own life. Like, what does contemplative practice really do for me? How do I see it show up in my relationships, in my daily moments, in my job, and in all of these things? Like, how is it to be in that mindset, through your life? How do you embody it? Yeah.
And again, remind me the title of the book, and I'll definitely keep it in the show notes. But I love the
Sure.
title.
Yeah, it's From Bonham to Buddha and Back.
Wonderful. I love it. And
Yeah.
at this point in the journey of what you've experienced, what is one lesson you would give to your younger self in the concept of embodiment?
I think the lesson I would give her, my younger self, when I think of my younger self, I think of my 20s when I was really swimming around, and I would say, get thee to therapy. I struggled. I didn't go to therapy until I was 40, I think. And, meditation was a great gift, but there were a lot of patterns that I had developed, that were really keeping me in suffering. And I wish that I had dived in more to really begin to understand myself. I think things would have happened a little quicker, as far as my healing journey. Yeah.
Yeah, I personally fully believe for myself that I would have greatly benefited from having a mentor
Hmm.
or coach of some type that understood the dynamics of being raised in a different culture and the pressures on women. And those are the unique things that often I don't even know if talk therapy would have been able to help me or resolve, but meditation coupled with some of these other techniques and tools at a young age and without assigning shame to it. Because I
Yeah.
think a lot of us do have a background. In my case was being raised with a Hindu family in the 70s.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
just all of the immigrant family challenges that can not uniquely be described.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to really come upon someone who really gets where you're coming from, especially when we're young. And, I think there was a lot of pressure on me to figure it out myself. And I did have wonderful mentors in my life. I have a wonderful mentor, a spiritual teacher who is still my dear friend. And that was really, really helpful. But there were some patterns of behavior that I developed, especially around like the eating disorder and body image things that I think would have been really helpful for me to speak to someone trained in being able to help someone. And I'm sure that there might have been people trained to help immigrant children or young women to come to terms with the culture. So yeah, for me, I'm kind of the person who, when I get sick, I go to the doctor, I go to the energy healer, I go to the shaman, I get acupuncture, I go to the naturopath, I take the medicine the doctor tells me to take. It's like I do it all. I feel like it's all manifestation and it's all here to help me. So that's kind of my take on things. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very similar. Through
Yeah.
COVID, I was like, okay, I'm going to take my turmeric shot, my ginger, my lemon tea, the whole
Yeah.
works. And I'm still the same way. But,
Yeah.
and again, that's somewhat a holistic embodied approach to self,
Right. Right.
right? Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
what a pleasure it's been just to get to know you and hopefully have you back. And just this topic is so much needed. I really believe that the sum total of all the topics I carried on my podcast the entire year, coming to December, I wanted to have someone really go deeper into the embodied awareness.
Mm.
You did it so effectively.
Thank you so much, Shilpa. Thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on the podcast. You have really, really such a wide variety of people, and they're all really interesting. So yeah, thank you.
Well, it's an honor to hear you say that. It's been a labor of love. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks for tuning in, sweet soul. If you've enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful for your kind review on Apple Podcast. Simply click on the link in the show notes to leave your lovely feedback and uplift our spirits. Your support means the world to me and helps our show thrive. So please show me your love and continue to practice Omni Mindfulness.